I hope y'all are paying attention to this. What some of these red states are doing is about to impact this country. The reverberations are going to be felt, especially since we have a conservative Supreme Court. Alabama ruling, Alabama Supreme Court ruling adds legal uncertainty around IVF. They just literally said that frozen embryos are children. That's what they just did in Alabama. The Alabama Supreme Court's ruling that frozen embryos are children creates new legal murkiness around in vitro fertilization, why it matters. The ruling, the first time a court has recognized frozen embryos as human beings, raises vast legal questions in the post Roe landscape, including how and if leftover embryos can ever be disposed of. The bigger picture, fertility providers and legal experts say the decision could create major liability risks that could drive up the cost of providing IVF services and force the industry to shutter in the state. The University of Alabama at Birmingham on Wednesday paused IVF treatments, citing uncertainty. IVF advocates also worry that the ruling could encourage other states with strict abortion bans to pursue IVF restrictions. By the numbers, roughly 2% of children in the US are born using assisted reproductive technology, such as IVF, according to the CDC. Under the IVF process, multiple eggs are retrieved and fertilized in a lab. A fertilized egg is transplanted back into the patient, and the others are kept frozen for possible future use. Nationwide, there were at least 600,000 embryos in storage in the US in 2020, according to the CDC, although other estimates put that figure as high as a million. What they're saying, the most immediate question that stems from the Alabama ruling is whether an embryo transfer that results in a miscarriage could result in penalties to providers, said Rachel Lofspring, a partner at the Family Law and Fertility Group in Cincinnati. Most embryos don't progress to live to live birth. That's true both of IVF and in nature. But if there's a miscarriage, is the doctor in trouble? If a woman has a miscarriage, is she now criminally liable? If stored embryos are damaged as a result of a freezer malfunction, it might previously been handled as a malpractice claim. In Alabama, it may now mean a wrongful death suit. Experts speculated. Why would a doctor put their license on the line by performing something that carries so much risk? Said Lindsay Hiller, a partner in the family law department at Fox Rothschild. Between the lines, IVF is sort of a numbers game, says Josh Hurwitz, a physician partner at Illum Fertility. Providers usually conduct genetic screening on multiple embryos to determine the best candidate and will also seek to screen out embryos with abnormalities. Most clinics will only implant a single embryo at a time to avoid the risk associated with pregnancies that involve multiples, following guidance from top medical organizations. Let's say you have 2 or 3 embryos still in the lab. Are you required to use them? That may sound like an extreme scenario, but he said that if Alabama ruling is interpreted to mean embryos in storage can't be disposed of, it raises the questions about what should be done with them. Zoom in. Clinics typically require clients to sign agreements specifying what should happen to embryos, such as whether they should be destroyed in the event of a divorce or the death of prospective parents. Alabama's court interpretation of the law could essentially override those agreements, turning property disputes into custody battles. She said it raises the question of whether one party who was involved in creating an embryo has the right to decide to implant it against the wishes of another involved party. If the embryo is successfully implanted and the life is created, then the other parent, theoretically, under this ruling, could have a child support obligation from birth until that child's graduation. Y'all, if y'all don't see how bad this could be, this these could have reverberations that go well past what these people think that they're doing. I cannot believe that they are going here. I should believe this. They want, I should believe. Another unsettled question is what happens if the patients are no longer able or willing to pay embryo storage fees? When we think about the abandonment of a kid, that's criminal. Well, what if somebody abandons an embryo? It really sets a concerning precedent because we see states look around and see what other states are doing and they follow. And these red states are just, it's like, I know that they have somebody that is writing out this script for each of these states to do. It's not just a state to state thing. This is a Republican, a Christian conservative thing. This is what Project 2025 is doing. And we're about to talk about that. This will require a part two because I am just going to start this article, Miss from Miss Magazine. And I don't care that it's going to be longer than the 10 minutes that I can make on TikTok because I'm just going to follow it up. Project 2025, the Rights Dystopian Plan to Dismantle Civil Rights and What It Means for Women. I've talked about Project 2025, and we're going to continue to talk about Project 2025 because they are systematically trying to strip our rights, and they have a whole 900 page plan to do so. All right, so this says with careful planning, conservatives today are working to make their policy priorities permanent no matter what happens in future elections. They are stacking the government at all levels local, state, city, and federal. So this man right here is Kevin Roberts, president of the Heritage Foundation. Wealthy right wing think tank, the Heritage Foundation, has published a detailed plan for the next Republican president to use the executive branch and the federal government to attack the rights of women, LGBTQ people, and the BIPOC community by eliminating the agencies and offices responsible for enforcing civil rights laws and placing trained right wing ideologues in staff positions throughout the federal government. And this is called Project 2025. It's a 900-page policy agenda. Number two, it's a presidential personnel database of vetted conservatives. Number three, a presidential administration academy to train these people to achieve the Project 2025 policy agenda is a 180-day playbook, which is what they hope to achieve in the first 180 days if Trump takes office in January 2025. To develop this plan, the Heritage Foundation organized a broad coalition of over 90 conservative organizations, a who's who of groups that have led attacks on reproductive rights and bodily autonomy, gender studies, and equal rights, the Equal Rights Amendment, and the Me Too initiatives. So those people have been attacking those things. So here are some of the white male leadership: Paul Dans, Spencer Christian, and Troop Hemingway. All right, the coalition includes Concerned Women for America, an Independent Women's Forum. You guys can read all of these people that are responsible for Project 2025 down below. The Heritage Foundation claimed over 400 scholars and policy experts participated in writing the policy agenda titled Mandate for Leadership, the Conservative Promise. It's not enough for conservatives to win elections. If we are going to rescue the country from the grip of the radical left, we need both a governing agenda and the right people in place, ready to carry this agenda out on day one of the next conservative administration. Their main target, what they call the totalitarian cult known today as the Great Awakening. Throughout the conservative promise, they rail against woke progressivism, woke culture warriors, you guys get they don't like wokeness. They have a particular vitriol for colleges and universities, which they describe as an establishment captured by woke diversicrats and a de facto monopoly enforced by the federal accreditation cartel. The authors invoked their first Mandate for Leadership book series written in 1979, which guided the Reagan presidency. In 1979, the threats we faced were the Soviet Union, the socialism of the 1970s, liberals, and the predatory deviancy of cultural elites. Reagan defeated these beasts by ignoring their tentacles and striking instead at their hearts. Here are their four goals: restore the family as the centerpiece of American life and protect our children, dismantle the administrative state and return to self governance to the American people, defend our nation's sovereignty, borders, and bounty against global threats, secure our God given individual rights to live freely, what our Constitution calls the blessings of liberty. The contradictions are glaring. The authors of The Conservative Promise claim to support equality while advocating for dismantling the government agencies that enforce laws ensuring equality, such as Title VII and Title IX of the Civil Rights Act. They claim to support freedom and liberty while advocating for a total ban on abortion, rolling back the rights of LGBTQ people, and closing the border. They claim to support free speech while advocating for banning any mention of critical race theory and gender ideology from schools and other societal institutions. They claim to support the working class while calling for tax cuts for the rich, elimination of labor protections, and deregulation of big business and the oil industry. The next conservative president must take the institutions of American civil society hard targets for woke culture warriors. This starts with deleting the terms sexual orientation and gender identity, SOGI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, gender equality, gender equity, gender awareness. Anything they just don't want to have any kind of gender anything. Reproductive health, reproductive rights, and any other term used to deprive Americans of their First Amendment rights. So they want to eradicate this as if these people don't deserve equal rights. These people are. Throughout the conservative promise, the authors condemn ruling elites, which they refer to as Washington elites, establishment elites, Marxist elites, socialist elites, Hollywood elites, entrenched elites, globalist elites, pro open border elites, and cultural elites. They explain today nearly every top tier US university president or Wall Street hedge fund manager has more in common with a socialist European head of state than with the parents of at a high school football game in Waco, Texas. Many elites' entire identity, it seems, is wrapped up in their sense of superiority over those people. But under our Constitution, they are the mere equals of the workers who shower after work instead of before. They assume the worst intentions of people they brand elites, whom they charge with making decisions for us and working to serve themselves first and everyone else a distant second. They describe the elites as power hungry socialists, for socialists who are almost always well to do. Socialism is not a means of equalizing outcomes but a means of accumulating power. They never get around to helping anyone else. This part, y'all. The irony is that the Heritage Foundation and many of the organizations in their coalition are led and funded by billionaire capitalists, most of whom don't want to pay their fair share of taxes or be limited by labor laws or environmental regulations designed to protect the public from economic abuse, pollution, and climate change. The conservatives the conservatives criticizing the elites are themselves elites. They argue that the left opposes equality and liberty established in the American Revolution, the Declaration of Independence, and the Constitution. It's the radical equality, liberty for all, not just of rights, but of authority, that the rich and powerful have hated about democracy since 1776. They resent Americans' audacity in insisting we don't need them to tell us how to live. It's this inalienable right of self direction of each person's opportunity to direct himself or herself and his or her community to the good that the ruling class disdains. Yet, this inalienable right to self direction does not appear to extend to pregnant women or LGBTQ people. They even invoke women's right to call for the destruction of women's rights. Left to our own devices, the American people rejected European monarchy and colonialism just as we rejected slavery, second class citizenship for women, mercantilism, socialism. Wilsonian globalism, fascism, communism, and today wokeism. Yet banning abortion makes women second class citizens. They charge the left with trying to control other people's lives, while they themselves are the ones who propose and champion state level and federal bans on abortion and gender affirming care. The left does not believe that all men are created equal. They think they are special. They certainly don't think all people have an unalienable right to pursue the good life. They think only they themselves have such a right, along with the moral responsibility to make these choices. I'm going to wrap it up with this page. In reality, free market policies of the Reagan and Bush administrations have generated tremendous wealth inequality and environmental pollution that targets the most vulnerable communities. Despite a long standing American tradition that career employees of the federal government are not political appointees, the conservative promise calls for removing any federal government employees who disagrees with their beliefs and replacing them with conservative ideologues. People should really be worried about this. They really want to have a theocracy. They boast about how to fire supposedly unfireable federal bureaucrats, how to shutter wasteful and corrupt bureaus and offices, how to muzzle woke propaganda at every level of government. And they're talking about wasteful and woke as as determined by them. So they get to talk about and discuss who has these rights and freedoms based on their beliefs. People should be worried about this. And that is the reason why we really need to focus on this Project 2025. All right, you guys can jump in the comments and let me know what you think about this. I know it was long, but it's necessary. Don't forget to like.